Hey, so hello, Sarah Deutchman. Today I'm going to talk about some implementation of data-driven learning and the effects of machine learning on the classroom. And I'm going to start by talking about my journey towards machine learning, implementation of data-driven learning in the classroom, how machine learning affects the classroom, and also the effect of machine learning outside of the classroom. So a question I've been asked is, when did you become interested in machine learning? So ever since I was young, I like to take everything apart. I didn't always take it back. I didn't always put it back together, but I liked seeing how things work from an early age. And then when I got to high school, I had some friends who were interested in computer maintenance. So I started learning about how computers worked and how to fix them when I had trouble. And then in graduate school, I was introduced to corpus linguistics, so looking for patterns in data. And then I found out that corpus linguistics is very connected to natural language programming, which is a type of machine learning. And after that, I started looking at some things generated by AI, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I want to learn how to program something like that. So quite often, people tell me that you shouldn't study machine learning so much because you're going to train AI to take our jobs. And I'm going to tell you, it's not going to happen just yet. So these memes, I guess they're memes, were taken from InspiroBot, which is an AI that can generate different backgrounds and some motivational quotes. So as you see, inner peace go hand in hand with being a weirdo. Or conversation is a shame, but so is a pirate. This is done by just randomly generating ideas together. So no, AI isn't going to take your job just yet. You still have some time and don't need to worry about it. Also, you should go to this link later because InspiroBot is pretty fun. Right, so next question you might have are, what are corpora? So I mentioned corpus linguistics before. So corpora are essentially just big collections of naturally occurring computer readable texts. And they can be comprised of millions and millions of words. It's considered more or less representative of a particular domain of language, according to Highland. So corpora can be made from anything you want. You can make a Dune corpus, so phrases that are most likely to be found in the Dune series, law, reality TV, or you can look for English for specific purposes, corpora. So it could be generated from absolutely anything you want. So what are the differences between corpora? Well, it really depends. I've listed 3 below because I'm more familiar with them. So Sketch Engine for language learning is a good way to introduce your students to corpus searches. It's good for higher frequency words, but not so much for low frequency words. So for high frequency words, you'll get like a word sketch. You can see which words are connected together. So which adjectives and adverbs are connected, or what nouns, etc. And it's good because there are no truncated sentences. So you get complete sentences to check for these patterns. And as a bonus, it's completely free and it doesn't require any registration at all. You can just go there and look up a word. Another free corpus is a contemporary corpus of American English, which is collated by Mark Davies. And it's good because it has more functions than Scale. You can create vocabulary lists for specific assignments. You can see if the text is very academic or not. You can check for collocations, lexical bundles. And there are also connections to translation websites, Youglish, etc. And Youglish is also pretty fun because it's like an audio corpora. So you can look at small YouTube clips of certain words to see how they're used in context, and you can also see how they're pronounced. And conc is another thing that you can use to create corpora. And you can create your own corpora. So you can look through mistakes maybe students are making. It also has the same features as the contemporary corpus of American English. So you can look for keywords in context, concordance lines, collocations, etc. Okay, another question you might be asking is, what is DDL? So DDL is data-driven learning, and it's an inductive process that allows discovery-oriented learning. So you can pretend like you are a detective, searching for these patterns yourself. And it's also good because it lets learners look at this naturally occurring language, so it's not changed. And it's also been found out that it's good for learning new vocabulary items, basic grammar items, and verb phrases. What can you do with DDL? Well, first, you can identify collocations. A collocation is a word that's usually associated with another word. So think about it as a strong coffee, and we wouldn't say powerful coffee. Also, you can look for connotations. So see if a word is associated with something positive or negative. So on the screen, you can see the object of cause. Cause is a typical example to show this. And you can see cause damage, cause problems, cause death, harm, injury, disease. So you can see cause is always going to be, well, almost always, associated with something negative. So causing happiness is not too common in the language. Right? Something else you can do is you can see what genre a word is usually used. So this is a search of the word a lot of. And mainly I teach academic writing, and students often use a lot of, which they shouldn't, because as we can see on the screen, a lot of is going to be used mostly in spoken language because the bar is high, and not so much in academic writing because that bar is very low. You can also see lexical bundles in context. So lexical bundles are set phrases that go together, so kind of formulaic language like there are a number of. And if I look at this, I can see what words are likely to come before and what words are likely to come after. So I can see what there are a number of. I can see it's going to be a countable noun. Agencies, assumptions are all countable nouns. And after that, it might be accompanied by a preposition or something like that. But this is good because you can analyze the different patterns in context to see what comes before and what comes after. You can also create vocabulary lists. Like, for example, these are the nouns that are commonly associated. Sorry, these are the verbs that are commonly associated with surveillance. So for my work, we always do an essay on surveillance. So I often provide students with vocabulary lists to help them discuss surveillance. And this was taken from the COCA. You can also create materials and do different exercises based on corpora. So you can do things such as fill in the blank, or you can do more open materials, so asking students what they notice, so bigger questions. Below, you can see an example of a more closed fill in the blank style. So this is a comparison search done on the COCA corpus with much and many using just one word behind. So what students would do is they would look for the words individually. So for number 1, we can say this activity is much or many harder than I thought. So the students would look for the word harder, which they'll be able to see on the much side. For number 2, surveillance should be allowed for much or many reasons. The students would look for the word reasons, which they can see on the right side. It's number 4. So you can give some type of activities like this to your students so they can make the discoveries themselves through some scaffolding. So another question that's commonly asked is, how do students react to the materials? For the most part, they enjoy it. When I use this type of activity, it was done with intermediate and advanced students. You could do this with beginners, but I would stick to something like Scale, Sketch Engine for Language Learning, instead of Collocacorpus. The reason is the words are easier to understand on Scale than on the Coca. You could also do a parallel corpus. So you could use an English and Japanese corpus and have them compare, or create your own ideas. You can create things from textbooks too. Generally, there's positivity that they can consult the corpus on their own. So they don't need to ask me. They can just create their own, do their own searches on their own time. I have been told that using Coca is harder than using Scale because it takes more time to get used to and more time to adjust things. Scale is easier because you just enter the word and you're done. You don't need to make any specific adjustments. Students also saw that using corpora is useful. So in general, there's a pretty positive response. I think there is only one negative response when I when I asked 3 classes after doing this activity. So about 30 students or so. So they liked it. Great. Another question you might ask is, how does machine learning affect the classroom? So the most well-known one would be through machine translation. So chances are some of your students might try translating essays or their papers. There really isn't anything you can do to fight against it. You can probably tell if they do it or not because translation still has a long way to go to be perfect. But it could actually help them to interpret some longer articles or something like that so they can understand it. It could also give them some type of idea about which words to connect together. Also, we have text prediction, which you can see over on the right, which is aikaku. So it can figure out which word is going to be used next. You can also see text prediction on things like your Gmail account or maybe your university web accounts. There are also chatbots. So you can create chatbots to explain different things. I'm thinking about creating one for common questions that based on the courses that I teach, because students usually ask the same questions again and again. Also questions on APA, they ask me many times. So I thought maybe if I create a chatbot, the chatbot can answer for me and just give automatic responses, as the questions are pretty much the same. And for chatbots, you don't need to know how to program from the ground up. There are websites out there where you can just put in your questions and put in possible answers that students might have. Put in possible questions that students might have and then put in your answer. Great. Another thing about machine learning affecting you outside of the classroom and things that you should be very aware of. So I'll take a little bit of time to put in a PSA while I'm talking about this, is you need to be worried about data mining, especially about the phishing scams on Facebook. So pretty much every time I open Facebook, which isn't that often these days, I see these quizzes like, what's your, name, like your special name or something, and it has these questions like where were you born, or other things like that. You shouldn't answer these at all because this is part of data mining. These are phishing scams. So what they're doing is they're phishing for your information. So these are the same questions as your security questions. So this is how you get hacked, right? Any answers to your security questions, by the way, should be random letters, numbers, and symbols. They shouldn't be the actual things. If you have trouble remembering them, use Bitwarden. Bitwarden is better than LastPass now because LastPass is only restricted to one device, but Bitwarden can be used by all, and typically it's free. It's a password manager. It can also manage your security questions. Other ways that you're affected by machine learning are facial recognition. So if you put up many photos of yourself that are easily accessible to people, it's easy to track you around. Think about how many cameras you go past in a day. Maybe not as much because of COVID, but before, you're going to show up quite a bit. Maybe it's not as much of a problem in Japan, but maybe in a lot more authoritarian countries, they know exactly where you are. And it could also lead to being stalked. So be careful who sees your photos. Also, handwriting. It's possible for AI to mimic your handwriting. Maybe it's not perfect yet, but these are things that you should be careful about. It's possible to steal identities. So this is how it happens. The information is out there unprotected, so please protect yourselves. And don't answer quiz questions. And I put this meme for emphasis. It says we posted a Facebook quiz with password security questions, and they not only answered the questions, they also shared it with their friends. So please stop doing this. Right, so in conclusion, DDL is a powerful tool. Right, you can look at corpora, natural language, and see the patterns. It gives autonomy to your students. They can look at it anytime they want. So if they're not sure, like, do you touch culture? Do you experience culture? They'll be able to see by doing these searches. They can enhance ESP courses because you can limit your corpora to only the specific surface, the specific, the specific thing you're teaching, right? Also, be careful with your personal information. You grew up at random string of numbers. Your first teacher is random string of letters and numbers. Your father's name is 2164 F6 question mark at symbol. Right, so please be careful of your information out there. Machine learning is getting smarter. So yes, it can help you, but it can also hurt you. Right, so here are some references. And if you're interested in learning more about this topic, I'm going to be giving a presentation at JOLT and the Teaching in Tech conference about how to create assignments using corpora. So hopefully I'll see you there. All right.